Welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage. This podcast is dedicated to helping attorneys earn more money, get better clients, and spend more time with family. I'm your host, Alay and founder of Law Firm Success Group. Smart business guidance for small law firms begins in 3, 2, 1. And it's my pleasure to welcome to Lawyer Business Advantage, Gary Martoccio with Martoccio Law Group. Gary, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Absolute pleasure. Doing great. How you doing?
I am doing really well, and I'm excited to chat with you today because you launched your law firm about 6 months ago after leaving a larger law firm. So, first of all, congratulations. And second of all, how's it going so far?
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate that. It's going great. It's been great to be where we are. About 6 months in, couldn't be happier. And yeah, it's been a great change, great transition. I had a great time at my prior firm. Got a lot of experience, a lot of good times and memories there. But this new chapter is off to a great start.
Really cool. I'm always excited to hear when attorneys do this and strike out on their own. What areas of law do you practice?
So employment law specifically, plaintiff side employment law. So all we do is represent employees against their employers. So I know there's people that do employment law that kind of dabble on both sides. We don't do that. We strictly focus on employee side employment law. So representing employees versus their employers, various type of claims that fall within that scope. Some areas of law that you may have heard of: Title VII, the FMLA, ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, ADEA, Age Discrimination Act. Those are the big ones. And various states have their own laws that mirror those federal statutes. So that's the gist of it. Plaintiff side employment law is the technical legal name for what we do.
So what have you loved most of all about having your own firm?
It's great to be able to call your own shots. No one to answer to but yourself. You can't beat that. And also it's very motivating, very challenging, and I think at where I was at in my career, it was something that I really look forward to, and welcome the change, welcome the challenge. So it's been great. Making your own schedule, you can't beat that. Having your own office, all that great stuff. There's obviously a lot of perks about being with a firm, but like I said, at the stage where I'm at in my career, practicing a little over 12 years now, I think it was just the right time, and it's been a great change.
Well, tell me more about that. You mentioned it was kind of the right time. So what were some of the things that indicated to you that yes, this is the right time for me to go ahead and do this?
Yeah, I think when I got into law, when I first went to law school, I always wanted to, have my own business, whether it was a traditional law firm or, some other area of the world where I could use my law degree. I always wanted to have my own business, and you obviously need to learn the tricks of the trade, right? And I kind of paid my dues, put in 12 years with a larger employment law firm, and yeah, I got to the point where I think I did kind of all that I could under the umbrella of a firm, and was ready to build something, build something for myself and those that are working with me. And I'm looking forward to doing that. We're starting pretty small right now. We have about 6 employees, decent size, but looking to grow, and just want to build something, and continue to help employees all over the country. And try to advance this area of law the best we can.
And the work you do, it's contingency based for the most part, right?
That's right. All contingency based.
All
Yep.
contingency.
Totally contingency based. Billable hours drive me crazy, so we never even offer it. Honestly, if it's something that's more suited for hourly work, we wouldn't take the case. We would maybe give some recommendations of some other attorneys that may be able to help, but strictly contingency based. Almost always involving a dispute between an employee and an employer, where we don't get paid unless we reach a resolution for the employee and recover compensation for them. So yeah, it's you got to be very, very selective of the type of cases that you work on, because you don't want to take a case where you can't earn income for that employee or for yourself, right? So you're working hand in hand with your clients. You want to be mindful of their time and your own time and picking cases where you think you're going to reach a resolution. I mean, do we always reach a resolution? No, of course not. There's no guarantees in anything in life. A lot of different variables out there, but after doing this, for quite some time, you get a good handle on the type of cases that can resolve, the type of cases that can succeed, and you try to do the best you can and offer the best service possible.
One of the things that's always been interesting to me about contingency work, and since you're getting started, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, is that initial cash outlay, because cases haven't come to conclusion yet and you haven't gotten paid, and you said you have a small team of six. So when you were getting started 6 months ago, how did you approach that issue of, yeah, I've got to put some cash into this business?
Right. Yeah, just something you got to plan for sure. You have to plan for. The good part is in employment law, cases resolve, I think, quicker than some other areas of plaintiff's law, um, as opposed to personal injury, where you're really seeing, people going through medical treatment and
Yeah.
uh, they need to see, kind of what their injuries are going to be and what it's going to look like down the road, right? Sometimes it's even better to play those cases slower than others in employment law. Um, and you get some cases resolved very quickly sometimes. Now, yeah, some of them do take several months or a year or more, but we have some cases that resolve in a few weeks. And when anybody asks, I say, look, some cases take a few weeks, some take a few months, some take a year or more. Some cases, take longer, right? You just don't know until you get in there. So I think, fortunately, the short answer to your question is employment law. You don't have to worry about that as much because you see a little bit faster of a turnaround. But definitely something you have to plan for. And I think that's the hardest part, to jumping out on your own. Knowing when that next case is going to resolve, or when that next judgment is going to happen, where you're awarded something from the court, right? So you definitely you have to plan, you have to prepare, but from doing this long enough, you kind of know it's clockwork. As long as you get the cases in, you find the right clients, you just trust your system, and it's eventually going to play out.
Thinking about, the past 6 months, what would you say, Gary, is the greatest challenge that you've had to overcome as you went through this process of launching your firm and then growing it?
I think managing your time as wisely as possible. It's uh, the intake side of things, I think, is where you need to focus a lot of attention on managing your time with potential clients, incoming clients. We have a really good system set up where we do the very best we can to get as much information from the client as possible, as efficiently as possible, and then we make our decision: do we want to take the case or not? And that's where I think a challenge that I face, and a lot of attorneys face, is which cases offer services or not, because you don't want to turn down a case that where you could help someone and help yourself, right? But at the same time, you don't want to take too many cases to where you're not able to offer quality services, or maybe taking a case that may not be as strong. So we've been really selective on the cases um, that we accept, and that's what I would recommend to anybody. I'd probably start more selective than the other way around, where you're
Sure.
where you're taking too many. You can always ramp it up, right? If you want to take more, if you have the need to take more, feel you can help more people. But we've been very selective, identifying the cases we want to work with, the type of clients we want to work with. And it's been great so far. I think we've done a pretty good job managing that, but that's always a challenge, right? Because you don't want to work on a case where you're not going to be able to reach resolution for someone, and you don't want to do that for yourself either. You always want to be mindful of a client's time and your time. So we've been pretty selective in honing in what type of cases we want to work with, like what type of legal claim, um, and how many we can handle. So we've done a really good job. It's a happy medium, and yeah, I'm happy with the way it's gone so far.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. What are some of those criteria that you are looking for in a case that would be a good case for you and your firm?
Right. So employment law, I think, more so than any area of law, there's a lot of people that think they may have a claim and very few that do. So it's filtering it down. So, for example, out of all the calls or internet leads that we get, we accept about 5% of them, give or take, as far as offering our services to them. So that shows you it's got to be a very specific type of case. Because with at will employment, yeah, you can get terminated for a good reason, bad reason, no reason, any reason. And almost every state in our country is at will employment. Certainly all the states. I practice in about 9 states. Every state that I practice in is at will. So you want to find a case that has an exception to that at will employment. Was the person discriminated against based on a protected class? Were they retaliated against for complaining of discrimination or taking medical leave or asking for accommodations or taking maternity leave or being pregnant, those type of things. So you're looking for a case that fits those criterias. Timing between when they made a complaint or requested a leave or requested an accommodation and a termination. That's always a good thing. That's something to look for. That's something that's going to be undisputed. And then you want to look to where I really like to pick at things is what reason were you given for the termination and what rebuttal do you have to it, and really listen to someone's
Yeah.
story. And
What's your side of the story? Yeah.
right, exactly. And you're going to get a wildly different version of the facts from the
Sure.
employer, and you want to say, kind of think ahead and see what they're going to say, and that's why we've developed a pretty good intake process to where we can kind of flesh that out. But of course, you're going to hear some things when you get into the case and you start seeing the employer's defenses that maybe our client didn't anticipate we're going to come up, or maybe they didn't share with us that we're going to come up, and then we have to find a way to counter that at that point. And it's a chess match, just like most areas of law. But yeah, we love working with clients that are ready, willing, and able to participate in the case and help us through the process because it's a team. It truly is.
So there's a couple of things you mentioned there that I want to dig into a little bit. I think it'd be really interesting for us to talk about. One is you mentioned the client intake process. There's the part before that, which is, why do clients choose to reach out to you? So I want to dig into that. And the other one you mentioned is time. And time is something that is really important to me. When we work with our clients, we're really focused on time management. Um, we have the 20-10-5 rule, which if you've listened to the program for a while, I talk about all the time. No pun intended. It's a really important asset to manage. For all the reasons that we all know. You can't save up time, you can't get more of it. Um, and you only have the time that you have. The good news is everyone has the same amount of time. And so it's really about how do you maximize it. I could go on, but that'll be the second topic. First thing let's jump into is clients have choices, right? Before they become a client, before they know anything about your experience in the amazing intake process and the wonderful service that you do for your clients, they have a choice. They can work with you, they can work with another attorney, or they can choose to do nothing. Why is it you think that clients choose to work with you and your team?
That's a great question. In employment law, it's really not an area of law where you're seeing billboards or commercials or any of that. It's a lot of word of mouth. It really is. Um, we get a lot of people where it's like, hey, had someone the other day. They said, "Oh, you represented me. I have a family member that's now going through an issue with a different employer," and that the list goes on and on. So you get a lot of word of mouth, and you get a lot of referrals from other attorneys. Um, you know, uh, Personal injury attorneys tend to get a lot of employment referrals. Workers' compensation attorneys that don't handle employee-employer disputes tend to get a lot of referrals. So those two ways. Internet marketing, of course. I'd say that's probably the most popular way.
Sure.
As opposed to like billboards or print ads or commercials. A lot of internet marketing. You want to have a good presence there. You really want to stand out. Have a good website. I think that was one initiative that we had when we started out. Really want to have a good website. Give some information. Let people know who we are, what we do, what our experience has been, because they don't know you from Adam when they're clicking around websites, right? If it's not a referral from another attorney or a word of mouth from a client or former client, they don't know how good you are. You could put things on a website, but
They have
really
no idea.
build trust, right? You want to build trust.
Right.
And we try to do that from the first phone call in throughout the process. Um, we get there a lot of choices. This is a really growing area of law. I wouldn't say it's as saturated as some other areas of plaintiff's law, but it is going, and there are a lot of choices. There's a lot of competition. So yeah, you really want to do the best you can to stand out and show them that you're going to fight your tail off for them. We can't guarantee anything by any means, but what I always say to a client, we'll guarantee that we'll work as hard as we can, and we're in this together. It truly is teamwork in this area of law. So just try to build trust from the get go. But yeah, I'd say those are the main areas: internet marketing, referrals from other attorneys, and then word of mouth from other
Yeah.
clients.
Do you find when you're talking to potential clients that they're talking to other attorneys?
You know, yeah, yeah, I would say a lot of people have already kind of done their research and their work right before they contact you, and they chose to contact you. So sometimes you will get someone that's saying, "Hey, I'm asking around, and I'll circle back," and that's fair. And we tell people to do that, right? Listen to others, see if they believe you have a case, see what they're going to offer you as far as the fee and all that structure, and get back to us. And yeah, most of the time we find that our fee structure is fair. When people really like the way that we treat them from the jump. So yeah, but I'd say most people, since we do respond rather quickly, if they like what they hear, they'll usually sign up right away. But I think it depends how quickly you get to them. If you're not as quick, then they are going to jump to the next attorney that they come across on a Google search, or they'll talk to someone else for a referral or whatnot.
Sure.
So
One thing
I
is for
think.
sure. I mean, people don't call their lawyer for fun.
Right.
If they're calling because they have a big problem and they're
Right.
looking for you to solve it. So if they trust you, they're going to work with you. And so the opportunity for the team and the consult is to build up that trust to the point where they say, "Yep, this is my firm. I trust them. We're going to go ahead and move forward." And sounds like you've done a really good job of doing that. So, congrats on your success there, Gary.
Thank you.
Um, what is a typical week in the life of Gary like these days, as far as how much you work, how much you play, how much time you take off?
Yeah, I'm a big in the office person. I have a little more flexibility and ability to work remotely or work from, out of town nowadays than I did with the larger firm, as you can imagine. But, I come into the office, every day. I'm working about 8 to 10 hour days every day. And then, you go home and bang out some emails and some admin work later on, maybe before you go to sleep. But yeah, that's the gist of it. I do allow my staff. I have an associate attorney and a legal assistant in-house, and then we have some law clerks and intake representatives that do work remotely. So I do allow for remote work. See no problem with it, but personally, I like to come into the office and have that separation from home and work life. Obviously there's exceptions and whatnot in certain days here and there, of course, but throughout the day, we're talking to clients, talking to opposing counsel, participating in mediations. That's a lot of what we do as employment law. There's a ton of mediations. That's a good way to resolve matters. For cases that advance into litigation, we've got hearings, depositions. Um, you know, Very rarely do cases get super deep into litigation and employment law. I think the stat literally is like 99% of federal lawsuits filed resolved before a trial. You either settle it or you lose on summary judgment. That's one or the other typically happens. So very rarely are we in trial. But yeah, had one that got really close that resolved a couple weeks ago. That was nice. Have another one that's on tap for a trial coming up here in a couple weeks, but that's more rare. It's mostly phone and Zoom. Even when you're in hearings in federal court, which is where we typically are, typically handled via phone or Zoom. And yeah, just a lot of conversations, a lot of emails. A lot of letters going back and forth. Demand letters are typically how we initiate each case. So yeah, it's a typical day. Nothing too crazy.
Gary, do you find that when you are thinking about your day, um, that you may be thinking about down the road adding another attorney to the firm?
Right. So yeah, we've got one other attorney right now. And yeah, absolutely. The plan is to grow. take it one step at a time. But yeah, we're looking toward the end of this year to add an additional attorney or attorneys. Kind of see how things ebb and flow. But yeah, have one associate attorney right now, and definitely looking to add.
Awesome. And how big, do you want to get as far as your firm goes?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. I
No
mean,
pressure. No one's going to hold you
right,
to it.
right, right. Yeah, I mean, look, I think the big thing is to just kind of be smart with it. Don't try to get too big too fast. Um, you know, in transitioning from the larger firm over to my own firm, it's kind of slow and methodical with it, and kind of trying to take that same approach here. You don't want to do it too soon, but yeah, I mean, I think as what we've seen through the first 6 months is that we probably do have enough incoming cases to where we're turning away some work that some very solid cases and being very selective. We don't want to get to the point where we're being overly selective. So get to that point, then I think we certainly could benefit from having an additional attorney taking the lead on cases. And I think we'll eventually grow to that. Yeah, I mean, the goal and the hope would be one day cover as many states as possible and add dozens of attorneys, if not more. That would be the vision. But yeah, we're taking it one step at a time, kind of just living in the moment and taking it from
Cool.
there. Yep.
That's great. And that's the way you have to do it. You can't jump from A to Z without doing the work in between. Otherwise, it doesn't generally end very well. So
Right,
that's
right,
great
right.
that you're taking that approach. Um, when you think about, some of the issues that you're dealing with right now in your firm, um, what are a couple of issues that pop to mind from a,
I
from
think
a
that
firm management perspective?
right, yeah, that time management, choosing what cases to work on and what not to work on, um, is a big thing. Obviously, you want to try to scale down expenses as a lot as possible, as much as possible. And I think we've done a pretty good job with that so far. It's always a challenge though, right? Sometimes you're looking at the end of the month and be like, oh, it's yeah, there's a little leakage here, leakage there, and you want to be mindful of that. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is choosing what cases to work on, how many cases to work on, and really fine tuning that and making sure your marketing spend is kind of in line with what you can handle, because you don't want to put out too much toward marketing, budget, and not be able to handle the cases when they come in. But at the same time, you don't want to not have enough cases. So finding that happy medium, I think that's the biggest thing when starting out as a plaintiff's attorney. And I think we've seen that, and we've kind of been really consistent with marketing spend and how many cases are coming in each month. And look, it takes two to tango. You need the clients to sign up too, right? So just because people are calling doesn't mean people are signing up, but we've been pretty successful with that. Have a pretty high success rate of those that we offer services to actually retaining us. So yeah, that I think is the biggest thing to fine tune, and I think we've accomplished that, and I don't think we've mastered anything yet as far as budgeting, but it's a process, and yeah, something I think that we'll see play out over time, and yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's an extra challenge when you have a PI type law firm, a contingency type of firm. It makes budgeting really, really hard because the cash flow is going to do this
Right,
as cases settle, and you want to get the right mix of cases, so you always have something settling and providing that cash flow. But it makes it really challenging to plan. And I think that those kinds of firms are the most challenging to grow. Because when you're doing another firm, like a conventional litigation firm or flat fee type of firm, you can kind of predict the money that's coming in really
right,
reliably. And so it's easy to figure out, okay, well, we're kind of getting to the point where we need to hire or make some different investments, and you can do that. And the money's going to keep coming in. Contingency, forget about it, right?
right, right.
That's where it's helpful to have, I guess, a line of credit that you can draw on, and probably cash reserves, I'm guessing, that you can draw on if you need to fund your growth.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, we've been fortunate to not have to do that, not have to do that at all. Been initial cash contribution from my own pocket, of course, but We haven't had to do that, and I think that goes back to choosing the type of cases um, that you want to work on, right? And choosing the right clients, and yeah, I get that there's some ebbs and flows in some areas of law on the plaintiff side, but I think that's when folks are chasing really large cases and don't have a volume of them, chasing home runs and they don't have any singles hitters, right? So you want to find that right balance. Of course, there can be some very large judgments or settlements in employment law cases. But you're typically not seeing $1 million cases here either. You know the cases that are consistent. You know the type of clients that you want to work with that can help you, deliver a more consistent result. And like I said, it goes back to those that are pretty willing and able to participate in their case, that respond to you quickly and have the right type of claim. And if it checks those boxes, nobody's perfect, but a pretty good handle on, you know, I can usually say this is what this case is going to get. I don't know how quickly it's going to get it, but give or take 6 to 12 months, yeah, we'll probably see this result, give or take. And yeah, it's something we're very fortunate on to have the volume of cases to not have to rely on just one hitting or not, right? Whereas, someone that's taking some, complex class action products liability claim or something, and that's banking on their whole next 5 years, right?
Sure.
It's really not like that on the law side. So
Yeah,
something fortunate. It's why I love this area of law, and just you get to help a lot of people, and that's really cool.
I love that. And you've got 12 years experience doing this. So you are able to dial into exactly the right kinds of cases that are going to be a good fit for you.
Right.
Uh, One of the follow-up questions is there's cases and a lot of cases that you get that are not a good fit for you. So do you have referral relationships with other firms where you can move those leads to a firm where they would be better served?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I get a lot of people asking about non-competes. That's one employee-employer dispute that we wouldn't really handle because that's more suited for hourly type work. So yeah, have depending on where the case is located, have some individuals to refer people to there. We don't do a ton of wage and hour work. We'll dabble with it a little bit, but if there's a potential like class action unpaid overtime claim, have some firms that we can refer out to depending on the location. So those type of cases, yeah, we would look to refer out more than handle ourselves. I'm trying to think of a couple examples. Those are just two that come to the top of my head as to what we typically refer out.
Got it. I know some PI firms, I don't know if you can do this or not, but some PI firms actually, because they send so much of those referrals out to other firms, are actually able to charge those firms a fee to get those leads. And it's a nice revenue
Right.
source for the firm.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it just yeah, depends on the state. I think every state's going to have their own requirements, disclosures to clients, whatnot. Most of them I think are good with it as long as you're upfront and you put it in the fee agreement. But yeah, it's definitely something I haven't really explored too much of getting referral fees. I definitely would in the states that we can offer a referral fee to cases that come into us, and we have had relationships like that with other firms. But yeah, I haven't explored that yet. I definitely would like to. You might as well if you're helping someone connect with another firm and giving them the business, yeah, to get a little bit of a referral fee back. But yeah, I haven't really explored that. It's been more kind of like, hey, we'll send one to you, you send one to me, and that type of thing versus a fee split type thing. But yeah, definitely something I agree that's a good way to generate revenue.
Yeah. So Gary, tell me, what are you looking forward to over the next year or so with your firm?
Yeah, just continue to stay consistent. Only 6 months in, can't pretend like we've won the race or reinvented the wheel. Just stay consistent, keep chipping away, and I think growth. Looking toward the end of this year, looking to grow out attorneys. Um, you know, uh, maybe look to add another state or two to where I'm licensed. Like I was saying, I'm licensed in 9 states right now, but always looking to add to that to be able to have a little bit further of a reach and help more people.
Right. And if people want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Right, great. So, yeah, our firm's website, it's martociofirm.com, martocciofirm.com, or email is usually the best way to get me at Gary at martociofirm.com. That's Gary, Gary, at martocciofirm.com. Two best ways to reach us. I guess I have an Instagram. I don't do too much marketing on there, but it's Employment Law Gary at Employment Law Gary. That's the Instagram.
We'll make
Yeah.
sure we get all that in the show notes. And Gary, thank you so much for being on Lawyer Business Advantage today. And again, congratulations on the first 6 months of your firm. I can see many, many more successful months ahead for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And yeah, anything else you need from me, let me know.
All right, thanks. And that's a wrap for this episode of the Lawyer Business Advantage podcast. One thing that would really help both us and other new potential listeners is for you to rate this show and leave a comment in iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you tune in to listen. And I want to hear from you, so connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know what you think of this episode. And if you are a solo or an owner of a small law firm and you're looking to earn more money, attract better clients, or reduce your stress, we would love to talk with you to see how we can help. Request your free law firm assessment by visiting lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. Again, that URL is lawfirmsuccessgroup.com. We look forward to talking with you soon. Thank you for listening. My name is Alay and Until next time, remember, you can seize freedom, you can embrace happiness, you can build your perfect practice.